So, over this last month, we've had some amazing tournaments going on around the world. There's been a couple of highlights there for me. Wimbledon, there's been the Women's Soccer World Cup, and the Cricket World Cup as well going. So, who here saw the game between, it's Women's World Cup, who saw the Scotland-Argentina game? Did anyone see that? Alright, so you'll know what I'm talking about. So we have a situation here where Scotland is leading Argentina 3-0, 17 minutes to go. So if you don't have to be a soccer player to understand that the game's in the bag. The Scots are super happy, they're going through the 16s, they just need to survive for 17 more minutes. But then, Scots are going crazy, they got the little bagpipes out there, they're having a great time. But then, something changes. The emotions and the situation that they find themselves in goes from a sense of joy and excitement to a sense of absolute devastation and sadness. So something must have happened in that situation. And three little somethings did. Goal 1, goal 2, goal 3, all in the space of 17 minutes. Out of the 16s, out of the tournament, Scotland gone. And the ironic thing is that even Argentina didn't make it through the tournament. So, how do you like that? So that was some surprising news. People didn't expect that to happen. And tonight, we're going to look at a little bit elements of that. We have tonight looking at unexpected but powerful news. Now, why would I say powerful and not only unexpected if we look at this passage? The thing is, Paul is pointing us to Jesus. And Jesus is the one who actually changed something in Paul's heart and in his life and changed his life. That's why I would say powerful and not only unexpected. So last night, Laura gave us a bit of a background. He told us a bit about Paul and what he was about, saying that Paul had changed teams. So he had done a bit of a LeBron James from one team, the Cavs, to another team. But the difference is he went to a really tiny, tiny, tiny team. And that news, to hear that the person that hated you, that despised you, that disliked you so much, because Paul had a really bad rep. He didn't like Christians at all. He didn't like what they were saying, he didn't like what they were thinking, he didn't like what they were doing. So he was no friend of Christians. But then his heart changed. And the other people who believed in Jesus, the rumors started spreading, did you hear about this guy who hated us? He is now playing on our team. He's on the same side now. That is only a powerful news. Only something powerful can change someone's life like that. And I think for us, if we can understand this passage, what Paul is saying here, if we understand that, it can actually change our lives as well. And I'm totally convinced of that. And I want to bring you along and kind of see if you agree with me. Do you think that that is fair? Is that a fair thing to say? So, we'll get the text up and then I'll read it together. And so, let's see if we've got it. So he says, "For I am not ashamed of the gospel, because it is the power of God that brings salvation to everyone who believes, first the Jew and then the Gentile. For in the gospel the righteousness of God is revealed, a righteousness that is by faith from first to last, just as it is written, the righteous will live by faith." So I want to hone in on something, that power of God, second line in the middle there, power of God. What does that mean? It's kind of a strange thing to say, a strange thing to read. But think of it like speakers, a speaker system in a massive stadium. So where those 2 pointers are there. The speaker is the way, the means, the method, but I'll use the word the way, that the audience in the stadium gets to hear, understand, and respond to the announcements that they're hearing. And so Paul's saying that this message, this power of God, it is the way that people are saved. He says it's the way that people get to hear about Jesus and then understand it and respond to him. And he says at the end there, he's not ashamed of it. Even if the gospel is not received well, or if it is, it doesn't really affect his feelings towards it. He goes on to say then, he says, "I will not be ashamed of this monumental news." He says, because of the value of this message for the whole of the world. It's the way by which people are saved because of what Jesus had done. Salvation here is open to everyone because of what Jesus had done. So now here's a question for you. If we're talking about salvation and being saved, the obvious question to ask is, what are we saved from? But I want to ask you, what are we saved to? What are we saved to? I'll let you think about that one. It's noteworthy that he says in this line, I'll just read it out, I don't have it on the screen there. He says, the gospel brings salvation to everyone who believes. So he hits that word believes. He doesn't say those who hear it and reject it, those who hear it and are like apathetic to it, or just do it because they want to please other people, so compliance. He says believes. So we can hear something and not believe it, that's for sure. If you think about it in a sporting sense, you can hear what your coach is saying, but if you don't trust that coach, and if you don't believe that what they're saying about your technique or about your future or about your career, you're going to find it very hard to implement what that coach is saying, especially when things get pretty hard and get tough. So he's saying that hearing alone is not enough. There needs to be a belief in the truth of what you're hearing. And when he uses that word faith, what I think he's saying that there needs to be a belief in the truth of what you're hearing. So it really needs to hit the heart. And believing this gospel, this is how God brings us into his family. Think about it as a big team, a massive team, and through that, being in that team, we have access to the head coach. Access that we couldn't have had because of all the gunk and the muck and the flaws and all those things in our lives. But God makes a way for us to get access to him. So with this information, this little bit of background, let's see if we can make sense of this last verse. Verse 17, I'll just read it out for us again. If it's not up, oh, there it is. Alright, so it says, for in the gospel, the righteousness of God is revealed. A righteousness that is by faith from first to last. Just as it is written, the righteous will live by faith. Now here's the big idea. The gospel tells us about Jesus' relationship with the Father. Because of his perfect obedience and Jesus' faith, he is in perfect righteousness. He is the perfect righteousness. And that word is not a word that we use in everyday conversation, righteousness. I don't, at least. Maybe you do. But the key word there is right. Righteousness means to be in right standing. So, things as it should be. Things are right. Righteousness. So think about having that concept in your mind. Think about your relationship with your parents in a sporting sense. In life in general. Sometimes there's a sense of disunity and disharmony with our parents and those siblings of us and all that type of situations, familial stuff, where there's a sense of anger and hostility on this one side, because either we feel that our parents or our coach or our brothers or siblings they've done something that's unjust, so we feel that, or our parents may feel that we have wronged them in some way. So there's this collision. Both feel injustice. So now we have to go from one state. How do we get there actually? From a state of injustice and disunity to a place of harmony and peace and justice. Where things are as they should be. There needs to be an action, right? And that's what the gospel does. It points us to the action that has taken place. That has brought us into a place of righteousness and unity with the Father again because of the actions of Jesus. That's what the gospel does and shows us. But the power of this news, which is kind of surprising, and just stick with me for what I'm going to say now, is that we don't have to do anything for it. Anything other than believing with our hearts. We don't have to sweat. We don't have to work for a place in the team. We don't have to play ourselves back in the team. And we do not have to perform. All of it is done by the actions that Jesus has already done. All we need to do is believe with our hearts and believe with our minds in what Paul says that Jesus has done for us. That Jesus says that about himself, what he's done for us, and believe that the gospel is true and that we are in right standing with the Father. He will change our hearts himself. We just need to be open and allow him to do that. We are like injured players on a field. So when you get injured on a field, you're just lying there, you're waiting for the medics to come or to get some type of treatment. And the situation we find ourselves is that we are in a place where we need treatment. We can't do anything. We're just lying there and we need treatment for the heart. And that is where Jesus comes in. He's the one that can change the heart, just like he changed Paul's heart. And that changing of his heart changed his life. And that's why I reckon this message can actually change our lives as well. If it gets into the heart, if we believe it, understand it, and respond to it. Finally, Paul says that those in right standing with God will have right standing because of their faith in Jesus. So I would encourage you tonight when you're going to your huddle groups to think about what it means for you personally. What does it mean to have faith? What does it mean to have faith in Jesus? And what does it mean to be in right standing with Jesus for you? And I'll have the music team come up with that, and I'll pray for us. Dear God, thank you so much that you are the ultimate coach, that you allow us to come and be on your team. And you don't require of us to be the best athletes, the best performers, that you just require us to be open to being taught by you. And we just thank you for what you've done, and that your actions have made us right with the Father. Amen.